Good morning. Welcome to the Light on Suitability podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Comeau, with Joseph Haytas, my lovely co-host, special guest host, Michael Gawlik, and we're going to be talking about owning your past. I don't remember the chapter. I think it's chapter 27. And this is in Joe's book, 36 Strategies to Suitability. I'm kind of winging it today myself because I jumped here in my living room and I don't have the book in front of me. So owning your past is kind of self-explanatory, but why is this, why do you have to own your past, Joe?
Why is it important?
Yeah, why do you need to own it? What does that mean? And why is it important for a parole hearing?
Okay, those are good questions. What does it mean? Well, it means going into your past and looking at what you did and examining what you did, and then being honest about it. And it's so important to be honest because then you can identify, who you were, what you were doing, what kinds of people you were associating with, if you're using substances or had any other addiction. And then if you own it, you can identify it, you can go and explore it, know why you did it. And then once you do that, you can come up with coping skills and know how to change it to become a better person. And then all of those things really relate to the hearing as well, because then at the hearing you have to demonstrate that you know who you were, why you were that person, and what you've done moving forward to address those issues, so that you can go back into the community and not repeat the same mistakes, if you will. You're muted, Elizabeth.
Sorry. I was unmuted while I was screwing around with the fireplace, and then I was trying to talk. Sorry about the noise.
I've done that.
And so what is the significance of that connection? Like, why does the childhood stuff help you? Your past is your childhood, but it's also, I guess it's also your criminal history and everything, who you were before you came to prison. How does that help you make those, how does that help connect dots and things and help you discover triggers, stuff like that?
How does it help you find your triggers? Well, by going back and knowing who you were, knowing your conduct, knowing the way you thought, your thought patterns, the people you associated with, and all that has to change. But before it can change, you have to identify it. You have to know it and own it. It's not only knowing it, it's owning it. It's like with your total being saying, yes, that's who I was. And examining the way you thought. And the body follows the mind, so everything starts with a thought. So therefore, you have to know who you were, and then you have to own it and say, yeah, admit it. Admit that, hey, that was me. I was the things I were doing was a problem. It was a problem to others. It was a problem to me, to my family, to the community. And hey, I got to change that. It's that realization for change. If you don't change it, you're not going to become a better person, and you're not going to get out of prison if you're a lifer with an indeterminate sentence.
Well said, well said. And then how about you, Michael? We don't have a lot of time today, but I want to make sure that you get a chance to chime in on this. What is this? I don't have the chapter in front of me, so I can't give you everything. But what do you think about owning your past? What is that? bring up for you?
Let's start with the important thing, and that's owning it for yourself. I mean, for those of us that are living a life of recovery and rehabilitation,
Mm-hmm.
Step 5 is confessing your wrongs in front of God and another person. And that's a lot of times the first step that many of us take in owning our past. Because let's face it, it's easy to lie to ourselves, it's easy to lie to others, but we can't lie to God.
Mm.
Our creator, our higher power, however you want to define it, knows us better and knows everything about us. It's hard to hide. So, if we're really truly working that step and living step 5, we're owning everything, all of our wrongs. And that is I honestly believe step 5 is the first step in truly healing, because we get that poison out. But let's take a look at it from more of a legal standpoint with board. Board wants to know a lot about our causative and contributing factors. How did we become who we are, and what led to the events of that life crime? And, owning our past is the only way to get there. Starting with the traumas we experienced as a youngster that helped us develop some of these destructive patterns that we had in life. Once we can identify those, then we can start seeing the patterns and connecting the dots and find out what it was, that caused us to have that thought and that choice to commit our crime. It's not just something that happens in an instant. People say, oh, well, he went in there and he killed the men in the blink of an eye. It's never a blink of an eye. It's a lifetime of behaviors and a lifetime of trauma and a lifetime of a lot of different factors that lead up to that one point to where a person goes in and kills another person or commits a serious crime, or really any crime. And when we start identifying those patterns and owning them is when we can make a significant change. Because if we don't own them, we will never identify them. And if we can't identify them and connect the dots and lay out this roadmap of who we were and who we are now, the chances of ever going home and being found suitable by that panel that's sitting in front of you is almost zero. And I mean, there's so many reasons to own our past. For healing, for, the legal purposes of hoping to go home someday. But, the healing for ourselves is minor. Going home is minor compared to owning our past and taking accountability for our victims and, letting them heal. Because every day we deny our past, every day we minimize our past in our actions, we just cause more pain and damage to our victims. We may never see it, and they may be unaware of it, but by denying our past and not being accountable for it, all it is creating the circle of victimization over and over and over again. And I think that owning our past for that reason alone is more important than owning it for board and owning it for myself so I can heal. Giving the people that I've hurt a chance to heal, I think, is paramount. It supersedes everything else when it comes to owning my past. So that's pretty much it for me right now.
That was excellent. That was a great summary of
Yes, absolutely. He always hits it out of the park, I tell you.
I know. Yeah, I really like the fact about, we forget, own your past, because It really is the gateway to healing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really,
Yeah, because if you don't,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, you go.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, if you don't admit all that stuff, then you're in denial. And if you're in denial, you obviously can't own anything about your past or about what you've done. And the more you are out of denial, the more that you admit it, and then you can examine it and look at it carefully from every point of view, every angle, and then you can work on it. Then but that's the key point of identifying it and then owning it, saying yes, this is who I was, and this is why, and take it apart. You gotta. I think presidential candidate in the past used to say, you have to open the hood and get it, fix the engine.
Yeah.
That was back in '92. That was parole.
Oh boy. You're really dating yourself. That's okay. It's good.
All right. See, I own it. I own my age.
Perfect. Really what this is all about too, which it reminds me of, is shadow work. That's that exploring the depths of our inner self step by step. And it's creating that foundation. So it means like it's the world of Carl Jung, It's shining a light on the parts of us we've kept hidden or ignored, those bits that might make us uncomfortable. And it's a way to discover more about ourselves, be kind to ourselves even, and become better versions of who we are, acknowledging that we all have shadows and that's okay, but without identifying them like shining a light in a dark room. You're not going to be able to see your way around enough. And unfortunately, you really have to do that. And for a lot of people, it's very painful. But for our clients, fortunately, it's a mandatory process. So it's that deep dive. And you probably know that, Michael, because when you start working those 12 steps in particular, it's like, even just step one, it's like, ugh, I recognize the ism, the disease of self. Oh man, I thought it was okay. And then you keep working, and then you get to step 4, and then you start rooting up all this stuff, all these character defects. And it's really, for most people, they view it as a negative. Again, it's like, why just focus on the negative? Because it's just like pulling weeds out of your garden. You're just going to have a beautiful garden. If you pull those weeds out, you're going to give room for other thriving plants to grow. Your rose bushes will look amazing. Your vegetables will taste amazing, whatever it is. But it's all of that nitty gritty that really produces the max benefit. I think is not the best analogy, but it's the only analogy I could come up with. But it's a journey of self-discovery, and you're going to have breakthroughs. And I just find there's so much empowerment around identifying character defects, flaws, trying to connect those back to, where does all that come from? Where does all of this, like if you find insecurity, well, insecurity, that's a whole can of worms. So what does that mean? I'm insecure about, needing somebody to validate me. You hear that a lot from gang members. Oh, I needed acceptance. It's like, okay, now let's unpack that. What's that all about? I didn't, because somebody at home didn't make you feel worthy, loved, safe, secure. You were neglected, whatever it was. And so then you just keep making these little connections, and there's tons and tons of threads and stuff going on in what, is fancifully fancy, in a fancy way, called shadow work or Jungian philosophy or whatever it is. But it's really, really transformative. And the people that resist it, I really think they're missing out. I know it is a painful process. It is really painful to realize that you just have to be your own savior. And that sometimes is really tricky as well, to go, oh, there's no one coming to save me. No one. And that's tricky, like I said. So, anybody have any thoughts, comments? I know we're kind of cutting this one short, but it's sort of self-explanatory. Kind of. It's a deep process, but the process is much more deep than the explanation. It's just you've got to go there. You've got to figure all this stuff out, and the commissioners want to know if you're able to figure out, why do you shot that guy to gain acceptance into blah blah blah, or why you reacted in a violent manner in response to this or that situation, triggers, relapse potential, all of that. It's all connected to your past. It all is. No matter anybody out there with their toxic positivity or their spiritual bypassing. I have some clients that just say, well, I'm a Buddhist now and I don't need to study that. Last week, my client said, I'm good now. I'm perfect. He said, I'm perfect, just
Wow.
the way I am. And I'm like, wow, I want to get there one day, buddy. But you're going to have to be able to explain that to the commissioners, how you got there.
Oh
They weren't
man.
that pleased
Yeah.
with the answer. Fortunately, he only got a 3-year denial, but he had age and no disciplines on his side, but his self-awareness was
Well,
really
see, no
lacking.
disciplines. He's perfect.
Yeah.
No disciplines, he's perfect. I mean, he does know how to navigate it. He just doesn't know how to explain it. And that's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
problem lurking, right? So narcissism, again, back to narcissism being
Yep.
really,
Character
really
defect.
tricky, because unfortunately, they lack self-awareness, or they lack the capacity for self-awareness because of the pain. And yes, shadow work it's not a fun process, but when you get to the other side, when you go through the fire and you get to the other side, the peace, joy, and freedom that comes from that is, I think worth it.
Yeah.
I'm in the fire myself, because of the grieving process will uproot a lot of different things, but I'm hoping one day I'll be on the other side of it. I know I see it. You see it in 12-step groups. You hear it because step 12, and they say they're sharing experience, strength, and hope. And how did they get to step 12? How did they have a spiritual awakening? They had it by owning their past and digging up the weeds.
Absolutely. And for those of us who've been through the fire and come out the other side, a lot of times we find ourselves turning around and walking right back through it, and recognizing that we still have more things in our soul and in our lives that we have to face and cleanse. So it's a lifelong process. It's never just one trip through that fire. Sometimes it's daily. Sometimes, we can go a little while without having to, and then something pops up, and then we have to examine it, and we have to sit in that fire again. But once you come to understand that this is part of the healing process, it takes some of that dread away. It takes some of the apprehension of doing this, because now I know that even though this hardship, this character defect, this trauma, whatever it is I'm facing is there, I have the strength to sit in the fire now and examine it and deal with it, accept it, and burn away the character defects, so that it may be that I can actually function on a more positive level. And one of the things that we talk about character defects is they don't just go away. The exercises we do help us develop positive behaviors, but those negative behaviors are still lurking in the corners of our minds. It's how we manage them. It's not just something that just, oh, I learned a magic trick. I went and walked through the fire, and those character defects are gone. And that's part of owning our past too, is recognizing that. And one last thing real quick. The first time I went to board, I'd already done, step 4 and step 5, made my inventory and confessed the harms that I've done before God and another person. But going into that boardroom and sitting down and having this exact conversation with these commissioners and laying it out all on that table and leaving nothing behind. Yeah, I walked out of that room with a 3-year denial, but I walked out of that room with a spring in my step. I felt 50 pounds lighter.
Wow.
For the first time in my life, I felt clean. That's the power of owning your past. It's not the freedom from getting out of prison that it gives you. It's not all this other, I can identify this stuff it gives you. It's that weight that it takes off of your soul. That's the true reward that this gives you.
Another really powerful point. Really great
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, it makes it real. Everything that you and I are saying, Elizabeth, that makes it real. That puts the feet on the ground, however you want to say it. And that's change. Like Michael here sharing how he felt 50 pounds lighter. That is like, I couldn't have said it better myself.
No, you and me, Joe, usually we're just bootstrapping off of Gawlik. He's been through the fire, like he said.
Yeah.
So what
absolutely.
do we have? What do we have in store next week? Chapter 28. We're getting down to the wire here.
I know. I'm going to be sad when this is all over.
Don't worry, we can come up with
the
another
smoking gun. The smoking gun.
Smoking gun.
Yeah.
Love it. I'm looking forward to that one.
Sure.
Okay, you guys, stay safe. Not in the other stay safe way, but just safe within. Stay safe within. You are safe. You are all worthy, and we are loved by the one and only, which is our inner wisdom and the Great Spirit there to guide us. So I will see you both next week.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, as always.
Yes. Yeah, we love seeing you all the time. It's great.
Yeah,
for
thank
Joe and
you,
I to
Michael,
see
for your great insights. It's wonderful. You make this show a pleasure to be part of.
Well, thank you. And Elizabeth will say, no, you did all the hard work, you did everything, but without guidance from people like you and Elizabeth, a lot of us, even though we do all the hard work, might not have all the tools to actually be sitting out here. So you guys do get some of that credit for us coming home.
Okay.
And as much as you guys like to say, no, you did all the hard work, take the credit that you do have and that you have earned. And thank you.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for saying that.
It means a lot.
It does mean a lot. And with that, I will see you both next week. Same time, same place. Maybe, unless I'm trying to gravitate to Spotify, but we'll see. Anyway, we'll always chat. Okay.
All right. So long.
All right. Bye-bye. Be good people.
Thank you.
You too.
Okay, you too.